Imagine casting your vote on Election Day,
Hmm.
but the final results aren't known until you're carving the Thanksgiving turkey.
Yeah, and for tens of millions of Americans, that timeline is not some hypothetical scenario. It's just the baked-in reality of their local election system.
Right, because we are watching this stark, basically mechanical contrast play out right now in American elections. Just looking at the raw numbers from recent cycles is wild. Down in Florida, election workers crank through massive voter turnout, and they report more than 90% of their final vote tally within hours of the polls closing.
Exactly. You basically go to sleep knowing the winner.
Yeah. But then, meanwhile, you look out at California, and the count there often sits below 60% after 12 hours. And the state regularly churns through its ballots for up to 30 days before finalizing the numbers.
30 days. Yeah, it's a completely different universe. So our mission today for you listening is to really unpack why. Like, why do these two massive states operate under such radically different timelines?
We're going to look right into the hood of their election laws, right?
Exactly. We're diving into the actual machinery, examining the intense political distrust that these delays create, and we'll break down the brand new 2026 California statutes that were designed to physically and legally fortify the ballot box.
And just a quick note before we jump in, we are looking at the mechanics and the political arguments here objectively. We're not taking any sides, just exploring what the sources reveal so you get the full picture.
Right, just laying out the facts.
So, to understand why California takes up to a month, I feel like we have to look at a state built purely for speed first. If Florida's system operates like a strict high-speed poll booth, California seems to have looked at that model and decided the rigidity was a bug, not a feature. They built a massive post office sorting facility instead.
That's a great way to put it.
So what does that high-speed toll booth actually look like on the ground in a place like Miami or Orlando?
Well, Florida engineers its entire system around quick, efficient tabulation. State law mandates the use of optical scanners in every single voting precinct.
Okay, optical scanners.
Right. So picture walking into your local school gymnasium to vote. You fill out a paper ballot and you walk right up to a machine. You feed that paper directly into the scanner yourself. And the hardware reads your ballot instantly.
But what if you mess up? Like, you accidentally vote for two people for the same office.
That's the beauty of it. If you make a mistake, an overvote they call it, the machine instantly flashes an alert and literally spits the paper back out at you.
Oh, wow. So you catch the error in real time.
Exactly. You don't leave the building until the machine accepts a clean, valid ballot. That instant feedback loop entirely eliminates the need for human election workers to manually decipher your intentions later that night.
Because the machine only swallows readable data.
Right. And Florida applies that exact same demand for speed to mail-in voting, too.
Yeah.
They enforce a really brutal receipt deadline. An absentee ballot must physically cross the threshold of the election office by 7 p.m. on Election Day.
Wait, physically arrive. So if the mail truck gets stuck in traffic and delivers your ballot at 7 to 5 p.m.
It goes in the trash. It literally does not count.
That is ruthless.
It is. And it goes further. If you forget to sign your mail-in envelope, or your signature looks sloppy and doesn't match your driver's license, the state gives you just 2 days after the election to cure that issue.
Let's translate that term for a second, just so everyone is on the same page. When we talk about curing a signature, we mean the voter gets a notification that their ballot was rejected, and they have to submit a secondary affidavit.
Yeah, usually with a photocopy of their ID, just to prove they are who they say they are.
2 days is a remarkably tight window to get that done. I mean, people have jobs, lives.
It forces finality. Florida has basically decided that speed and absolute certainty by Wednesday morning outweigh the risk of leaving a few late or messy ballots uncounted.
So if you're driving to work in Florida right now listening to this, you might be thinking, why on earth would anyone accept a ballot a week late? But if you live in California, you view the entire voting process through a totally different lens.
Completely different. California prioritizes maximum enfranchisement.
Right.
Which means they cast this incredibly wide net to catch every possible eligible voter, even if it brings the tabulation machinery to a grinding halt.
And the scale of that net is staggering. I mean, 29 days before an election, California prints and mails a live ballot to every single registered voter in the state.
Tens of millions of ballots entering the postal system simultaneously.
And returning them involves incredible flexibility. A California mail ballot is legally valid as long as it gets postmarked by Election Day. It can meander through the postal system and arrive up to 7 calendar days later, and the county still has to count it.
Yeah, and that 7-day transit window creates a massive mathematical blind spot for the state.
How so?
Well, when the polls close on a Tuesday night, election officials don't even know the total denominator. They have no idea how many ballots exist in the wild until a full week after the election is over.
Because you can't calculate a final percentage if you don't know how many total votes are just sitting in mail trucks across the state.
Exactly. And the rules for fixing human error are just as wide. You remember Florida's 2-day window to cure a bad signature?
Yeah, the strict 2 days.
California gives voters up to 22 calendar days after the election to fix signature issues.
Wait, 22 days?
Up to 22 days. On top of that, they allow same-day voter registration and provisional ballots right up through the final hour of Election Day.
Ah, provisional ballots. Those act as a massive speed bump in the tabulation process, don't they?
Huge speed bump. Say a voter spills coffee on their mail-in ballot at home, throws it away, and decides to just vote in person on Election Day.
Okay.
The poll worker can't just let them vote normally because the system shows they were already mailed a ballot.
Right, they might be trying to vote twice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the voter fills out a provisional ballot, which goes into a special pink envelope.
It essentially is quarantined.
Quarantined and heavily scrutinized. In the days following the election, a human county worker has to literally sit at a desk, open up government databases, cross-reference DMV records, check old voter rolls.
Just to verify that this specific person didn't already mail in their original coffee-stained ballot.
Yes. Only after a worker plays detective and clears the voter can they physically slice open that pink envelope and count the vote.
That level of manual detective work applied to millions of voters naturally invites a massive bottleneck because everyone naturally waits until the last minute. Millions of Californians drop their mail ballots into physical drop boxes on Election Day itself.
Right, and all those envelopes have to be collected, transported, sliced open, and signature verified by human eyes before the ballot even touches a scanner.
Because of this colossal intake bottleneck, the statistics they tell a remarkable story. Over the last 5 general elections, California has tabulated an average of 38% of its total vote after Election Day.
Almost 40% of the vote counted after the polls have already closed.
And when nearly half the vote is a complete mystery on Wednesday morning, human psychology kicks in. This is where the mechanical differences really collide with political reality.
They absolutely do, because leaving the counting window open so long breeds intense political debate. The slow count severely damages public trust among certain demographics. We see this documented heavily in the sources.
Yeah, the distrust is palpable.
Reports from WABC Radio highlight how the delayed process causes voters to lose faith in the integrity of the election itself. Prominent figures like Kevin McCarthy have heavily criticized this slow count, pointing to the weeks of uncertainty as a failure of governance.
And it fuels claims from Donald Trump, right? He frequently points to this slow, drawn-out process to allege big cheating. I mean, when the leading candidate on election night suddenly falls behind 5 days later because a new batch of mail-in ballots from Los Angeles was just verified, it feels unsettled to a lot of people.
It does, and the statistics on this trust gap are striking. A recent UC Berkeley poll illustrates the divide perfectly. 67% of Republicans report they are not satisfied with California's democracy.
67%. Wow.
Compare that to only 10% of Democrats who say they are not satisfied. That is a 57-point gap in trust, stemming heavily from how the mechanics of the system operate and how long the count takes.
You really have to think about the psychology of the wait. Like when you watch a sports game, you know the score when the clock hits 0. You can celebrate or you can mourn, but the event is definitively over.
Right.
The human brain seems fundamentally wired to be suspicious when the scoreboard keeps changing for weeks after the game officially ends. Even if that changing scoreboard is just the verification process playing out exactly as the state law dictates, it naturally feels shady to a brain expecting immediate finality.
But California officials vehemently defend their timeline. People like Assemblymember Gail Pellerin and Secretary of State Shirley Weber argue that demanding speed over accuracy is a false choice.
A false choice. Interesting.
They maintain that the 30-day counting window isn't a flaw, it's a vital protective measure. They state the time is necessary to ensure eligible voters aren't disenfranchised purely because of bad penmanship or slow postal service.
So they view the delay as the price of admission for a true democracy.
Exactly. When a county receives a mail-in ballot from, say, an 80-year-old voter whose signature has deteriorated due to arthritis, California wants the time to send that voter a letter, wait for their response, and legally verify their identity.
Rather than just throwing it in the trash like in Florida.
Right. To California officials, cutting that process short just to satisfy the public's desire for a quick result on television is basically a dereliction of duty.
But that psychological suspicion we talked about doesn't just stay on talk radio or in poll numbers. It eventually walks right into election offices.
It does.
The brewing distrust over these delayed counts has escalated into physical threats against the people processing the ballots. And that brings us to a major legislative countermove. California legally armoring their voting systems for 2026.
The state legislature realized that this distrust was actually manifesting as physical interference. So for the 2026 elections, Governor Gavin Newsom signed several new laws specifically written to armor the voting process against outside agitation.
And the most consequential of these are Senate Bill 73 and Senate Bill 851, right?
Those are the big ones.
Whenever a state passes a highly specific law like this, it usually means someone, somewhere, already did the thing they're trying to ban. I know our sources highlight a real wild incident in Riverside County that essentially triggered this legislation.
Oh, the Riverside County incident is the exact mechanism that forced the state's hand. In a recent cycle, a local county sheriff, operating under the justification of investigating alleged voter fraud, utilized his law enforcement authority to seize 650,000 ballots from his own county's registrar of voters.
Wait, I just have to pause on that.
Yeah.
A local sheriff walked into an election office and used a badge to commandeer more than 500,000 ballots.
Yes. It perfectly illustrates the legal gray area they were dealing with. A local official leveraged his law enforcement power to intercept the electoral supply chain.
That is wild.
So the state government looks at a local sheriff physically taking ballots and realizes they need to build a massive legal wall. And that is exactly what Senate Bill 73 is designed to do.
Okay, so break down SB 73 for us.
Senate Bill 73 explicitly restricts unauthorized law enforcement from accessing voter rolls or certified voting technology. The law requires local police, county sheriffs, and even federal agents to secure a formal court order or present a highly specific, authorized criminal investigation warrant before they can touch election materials.
So it completely closes the loophole of a sheriff just deciding on a whim to launch a personal fraud investigation.
Exactly. Furthermore, SB 73 attaches severe criminal penalties to the physical ballots themselves. It is now a crime to illegally take a package of voted ballots from election officials.
What's the penalty?
Violating this law carries a $1,000 fine or up to 3 years in prison. The state is establishing a rigid chain of custody that local law enforcement cannot break without judicial oversight.
So SB 73 builds a legal wall against law enforcement overreach once the ballots are in the building. I imagine the next step, Senate Bill 851 deals with the physical vulnerabilities out on the streets before the ballots even make it into the county building.
Yes,
Because
exactly.
we saw a lot of headlines about private groups setting up their own ballot collection points.
Right. Senate Bill 851 targets the physical environment surrounding the voter. First, it outright bans the use of fake drop boxes. In previous elections, political organizations actually deployed gray metal boxes labeled official ballot drop in local neighborhoods.
And voters would just deposit their ballots, entirely unaware they were handing their vote to a private political group rather than the actual county registrar.
Exactly. SB 851 criminalizes that deception entirely.
And it also addresses the intimidation factor at the polling places themselves, doesn't it?
It does. The law makes it a crime to place armed personnel, private security forces, or uniformed federal agents near polling places or county election offices without explicit written permission from a state elections official.
It is just profound to step back and realize a state government felt forced to pass a law to keep local and federal law enforcement away from the ballot boxes. That reveals a deep, deep institutional friction.
It really does.
You have a state apparatus passing legislation to protect the physical mechanics of voting from other government officials who claim the process itself is fundamentally flawed.
It demonstrates how incredibly localized American elections truly are. The underlying philosophy of the state dictates the entire mechanical reality of the voter.
Absolutely.
In Florida, Election Day functions as a strict, unforgiving deadline. The system is engineered from the ground up to give the public a result before they go to sleep. But in California, Election Day acts more like the opening whistle to a month-long verification season.
Two completely different systems reflecting two entirely different priorities.
Yeah.
One prioritizes sheer speed and finality. The other prioritizes maximum enfranchisement, just accepting the messy, month-long bottleneck as a necessary feature.
Yeah.
And those differing priorities are now sparking strict new laws to physically guard the process from the distrust it generates. The mechanics of how we vote directly dictate how much we trust the final outcome.
They do. Every single gear in that machine matters to the voter.
Which leaves us with a final concept to chew on as we wrap up this deep dive. If the speed and design of a voting system shape our political trust so heavily, what happens to that psychology if technology eventually evolves?
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. Imagine a future with instantaneous, universally secure digital voting, where millions of votes are tallied perfectly in a microsecond. Would the bitter arguments over speed versus access completely disappear? Or is human nature so wired for suspicion that we would just find something entirely new to distrust about the machines?
That is a fascinating question.
Definitely something to mull over. Keep questioning the systems around you, and thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.